This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Chaos in Winnipeg when everybody was arriving, right? People were sleeping on the floors, like on cots. There's no hotel rooms available.
Just lucky to be here, to have a spot, to have a bed.
People fleeing wildfires are desperate to find a place to rest their heads tonight, as some evacuees are being housed as far as Ontario. Good evening. Evacuations are underway in multiple northern Manitoba First Nations today as the threat of wildfires continues. Hundreds are on the move from Matthias, Colombe, Pimichikamak, and Titasqueyak Cree Nations. As the CBC's Rosanna Hempel explains, many other communities are opening their doors as far as Ontario.
After days on edge, breathing in wildfire smoke, and waiting for a helicopter ride to safety, the last community members of remote Puckatawagan have made their way out. Only a few dozen firefighters and people caring for pets and security remain. Garrison Settee is Grand Chief of MKO.
And I know that today we're going to lift 600 people to Hamilton and then to Niagara Falls.
That's where evacuees from Pimichikamak Cree Nation, also known as Cross Lake, arrived on Sunday. With its abundance of hotels, Niagara Falls is making room.
A lot of people were skeptical because there's chaos in Winnipeg when everybody was arriving, right? People were sleeping on the floors, like on cots.
Sheena Garrick from Pimichikamak is helping her community get settled in Ontario.
It's pretty sad. It's hard for a lot of people. A lot of them never left the reserve.
Stevie Muskego is among them. His journey from Pimichikamak brought him to Norway House, to Winnipeg, and now to Ontario.
Very scared for my community, for everyone. Still struggling over there in Winnipeg right now. Just lucky to be here, to have a spot, to have a bed.
Meanwhile, Saugeen First Nation is hosting more than 300 people from the northern community of Titasqueyak Cree Nation, who began evacuating to Gillam last week.
There's a lot of children, and they were just happy to get to the arena. They showered. We fed them right away. We gave them water, juices, and they're very quiet. It's been a traumatic day for them, and like I said, they were just happy to bunker down and settle in with their family.
It comes as Saugeen closely monitors a nearly 200,000 hectare threat to the east. Hopeful as it opens its doors, the wildfire doesn't land on its doorstep. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The fire near the town of Lynn Lake is out of control, and it's now about 50,000 hectares in size. The mandatory evacuation is still in place. CBC's Alana Cole has those details tonight.
These photos, a glimpse of the fire burning near the town of Lynn Lake. That's where Darcy Cook is from. He's now in Thompson.
So that's your home there?
Yes, it is.
Cook has been watching videos from cameras on his neighbor's property, trying to get the latest on his home.
I'm hoping that it will still be standing when I get home, if we ever make it home.
The town of Lynn Lake, with a population of about 600, was evacuated last Tuesday, with officials saying a rapidly advancing wildfire posed an imminent threat. This photo taken by one resident as he left. Manitoba's Minister of Natural Resources says the fire in Lynn Lake was very active Sunday.
Some abandoned derelict structures were lost. All major infrastructure is reported to be safe.
The fire chief from the RM of Springfield says 5 members from his department volunteered to go to Lynn Lake to help on the ground there.
As you can tell, the whole province is on fire right now. The smoke is very, very heavy throughout. I'm sitting in Oak Bank and I can barely see out the window because the smoke is so heavy. We have had rain, but it's not what we need more.
The latest update from the province says the fire remains out of control. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Thousands of Manitobans don't know how long they will be out of their homes because of the fire. The province's last number says 17,000 people are displaced. Evacuees don't know how long they'll be away from home, and supplies are running low. But as CBC's Mike Arsenault found out, the generosity of Manitobans is on full display.
Diapers, toothpaste, and hygiene products are just some of the items Katie St. Germain and her husband are loading into their truck. When she learned that thousands of people had been displaced due to wildfires in the province, she wanted to help. St. Germain says she managed to raise $3,000 in 24 hours.
Really feeling for them right now, so I wanted to get supplies to them and all the centers that are helping out and doing what they can.
Many of the wildfire evacuees were only allowed to carry one bag with them as they scrambled to get out of northern Manitoba. It could be weeks before they can go back home, and they're in need of donations.
And they were just really needing diapers, wipes, formula, things like that. So I kind of focused on that for now. And I'm a mom of three kids. I know how it is, especially if you had to leave in a hurry and you don't have those supplies.
Once they're done, then we'll pack them. And then there's some more over here.
At the Winnipeg Soccer Federation building, Mary Sylvia Caribou set up a tent for collecting donations. She's an emergency management organizer and was evacuated from Puckatawagan Cree Nation. She says they're getting a lot of donations for adults, but they need more for kids.
We need more baby stuff like socks, Pampers, milk. We don't have much here for baby stuff.
Caribou says there were roughly 600 people in the Soccer Federation building Monday morning. She hopes to go home soon, but was told she could be here for a couple months.
Just keep praying for us that everything works out, that we go home safely and no one gets lost.
I have a lot of people that are wanting to donate playpens and high chair strollers, things like that. So I think I'll pick those up and also try to make a trip in later on this week.
St. Germain is doing her part to show evacuees she's here to help. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, schools across Winnipeg canceled recess this morning after Environment Canada issued air quality statements due to smoke from the wildfires. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
Thick wildfire smoke from northern Manitoba prompted an air quality warning for much of the province earlier today. Schools across the Louis Riel School Division cancelled recess for K to grade 6 students. But by afternoon, recess was back as conditions improved. Christian Michalik from the division says schools are taking extra precautions when it comes to outdoor activities.
Regrettably, it appears that this is going to become a part of our new reality going forward.
Matt Henderson from the Winnipeg School Division says every morning they have a team that monitors the air quality. He says his schools have also been prepping for smoky days ahead.
We've asked people to hold back on competitions or strenuous activities, recess for a brief amount of time for children who don't experience respiratory challenges. We feel is fine.
Meanwhile, Kevin Rebeck from Manitoba Federation of Labour says employers have responsibilities when it comes to outdoor exposure limits for workers.
Particularly workers with respiratory issues right now need to be looked after and need to have their health and safety kept in mind, and that may mean working indoors or finding some alternative things for them to be doing so that they're not exposed to this hazard.
Rebeck says the province has weak guidelines for wildfire smoke exposure. He's talking the government to improve the safety standards. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. And Riley, as we saw there in Zubina's report, air quality really a big thing here in Manitoba right now.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, over the weekend especially, we did see some of that impact as we've gotten throughout the past couple of days here. I wanted to start with the Air Quality Health Index. This is the scale of 1 to 10 in which we measure some of that air quality. So Winnipeg today, we've been sitting at about a 6 through much of the day today. We'll see the smoke diffusing a bit as we get through the next 24 hours, and that will lower that risk a little bit more, but still a moderate risk. To put this into context, we were at a 10 plus through the afternoon hours yesterday. So that just gives you a sense on where we came over the weekend with all of that smoke. Flin Flon, just to put it into comparison here, the air quality in the town itself, which has been evacuated, has been starting to get a little bit better, but do expect that to kind of ebb and flow. And that's why across northern Manitoba, still air quality warnings in place. We're looking at that air quality health index up around that 9 or 10 mark as we get through the next couple of days here, and still seeing that in place place into eastern Manitoba, where we are dealing with that fire still burning in Nopaming Provincial Park. So as we've seen a bit more of a westerly flow throughout the day, that has helped push some of this smoke a little bit more easterly once again. So yes, air quality concerns again as we head into Tuesday across a good chunk of northern and central parts of the province. And as we see more of a northwesterly flow as we get Tuesday into Wednesday, that's going to start pushing some of that south again. So do expect in places like Dauphin and Swan River to see that haze and that smoke continuing as we get through the next couple of days once again. We'll see some of that in the south here as well, starting to kind of ebb and flow as the wind shifts direction once again. But yeah, we are looking at air quality remaining a concern across the province. We'll talk about that and more about the wind when I come back.
All right. Thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Dozens of people signed up to speak at City Hall on a plan dramatically reshaping Winnipeg neighborhoods. The changes are needed to access millions in federal housing funding.
Winnipeg neighborhoods could look dramatically different in a few years. City Council began a hearing today on new zoning rules that would allow up to 4 units on residential lots across Winnipeg. Projects could get approval without a public hearing. So could buildings up to 4 stories within 800 meters of frequent transit. Dozens of people registered to speak at the hearing, which is expected to last multiple days, beginning with supporters like Michael Hems.
I believe that we need to just allow our housing stock to grow in a way that curbs urban sprawl. Because to many Winnipeggers out there, they understand our infrastructure is crumbling.
The city agreed to make the changes to get more than $122 million from the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund. Critics say the plan will take away the right of people to have a say on developments. St. Vital councillor Brian Mays says city staff have addressed some of his concerns, but not all of them.
Been respectful so far. We'll see. There'll be tempers will rise at some point, probably mine included, but so far so good, I think.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says the federal government mandated the changes and the city needs the money for housing.
We have talked publicly and consistently about the fact that I think as of 6 months ago, the vacancy rate in Manitoba was below 2%. It's very difficult to find housing in Winnipeg right now. Councillors
are expected to vote on the zoning changes later this week after all delegates have spoken. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg is about to get its first pedestrian scramble intersection. It will be at King Street and Bannatyne Avenue in the Exchange District. The scramble is when vehicles in all directions stop to allow pedestrians to cross in all directions at once, including diagonally. It's part of a pilot project to see if it can work at other Winnipeg intersections. The scramble is popular in many other cities, including Tokyo, Toronto, and New York City. Mounties say there's been a drowning at Sturgeon Falls in Whiteshell Provincial Park. Emergency crews responded early Saturday afternoon after a 38-year-old Winnipeg woman slipped on rocks and fell into the water. Officials say a strong current pulled her into Nutamick Lake. They were able to find her using a boat, and she was rushed to hospital where she later died. The investigation continues. A Winnipeg man convicted of manslaughter in his baby's death is to spend 7 years in prison. Matthew Moreau, who is now 35, was alone watching his son Maven in January 2020. The 3-month-old was rushed to hospital in serious medical distress with a brain bleed, a broken clavicle and leg, and ultimately taken off life support. Moreau was handed his sentence on May 30th. Court heard he's been assessed as a medium risk to reoffend. The province's police watchdog is investigating after a man was shot dead by police on Ferry Road Friday evening. The man has been identified by family as 32-year-old Dill Warren Breed. His family in Ontario are making arrangements to travel to Winnipeg. Officers were called to the area for a call about a man behaving suspiciously in a back lane. Police said the man was covered in blood, and the caller was worried he was trying to break into homes. The man was said to have been armed with a screwdriver. He was then shot by police. Officers provided medical care on site until paramedics arrived, but the man died in hospital. 5 people were rushed to hospital after being stabbed early this morning. Police were called to the 500 block of Mountain Avenue around 4 this morning. There was a report of 2 people stabbed outside. Now, when officers arrived, they found 5 adults with injuries. 3 initially were in critical condition, but all are now unstable. Investigators say this appears to be an isolated incident involving a group of people who were fighting. Manitoba Hydro support workers have voted in favor of going on strike. CUPE 998, the union representing the 900 workers, says it has received a strike mandate from its members. It's the second largest group of union employees at the Crown Corporation and represents those in departments like IT and customer service. It comes after the 2 sides weren't able to reach an agreement. CUPE says it's filed for conciliation support to reach a fair deal. Wage increases are among some of the issues on the negotiating table. No strike date has been set. CBC weather specialist Riley Lakechuck joins us once again. And Riley, a lot of things you're keeping an eye on here in the forecast. Of course, rain, wind, temperature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wind will play a big factor into things in the next 24, 36 hours as we get through into the middle of the week. We're looking at winds starting to pick up again in parts of northern Manitoba. So that's where I'll start tonight as we get into the day on Tuesday. So looking at winds, particularly into northern Manitoba, we are looking at gusts upwards of 50, even 60 as we get through the night into the day on Tuesday for parts of northern Manitoba. And it's the unpredictability of the wind that is playing such a big factor in where we're seeing the fire movement and the fire activity. So you can see starting Tuesday morning, winds do back off a little bit, but still at a pretty gusty rate as we get through the rest of the day, looking at winds 20 gusting 40, even in Lynn Lake, up to 50 kilometers an hour. And we start to see that wind shifting back around to a more northwesterly flow by the time we get into the evening. And we do start to see winds backing off as we get into the day on Wednesday, but we are looking at that wind still staying pretty strong across parts of the province as we get through even into the middle of the week. A little bit of relief today, mostly because of this large area of low pressure that's centered over the territorial border right now. This has been spreading a little bit of rain into parts of northern Manitoba, places like Lynn Lake, getting some showers as we get through the night tonight into the day on Tuesday. Is it as much as we need? Probably not. We could use a lot more, but you know, we'll take what we can get as we get through the next couple of days here. Some showers in the south along a cold front. That's what's helped kind of drive our temperatures down and diffuse some of that smoke as we've gotten throughout the day here in the south. That exits as we get through the night. Then we're back into a mainly sunny sky for the south. This area of low pressure still spinning some rain and even in some cases likely some wet flurries as we get a much needed break from some of the heat in northern Manitoba as well. So that is pushing in some much cooler air into parts of northern Manitoba. And that is also likely going to help firefighters, but what won't will be that wind as it continues to go at a strong clip Tuesday into the day on Wednesday. Into Thursday, looking at mainly sunny skies once again. Next couple of days in southern Manitoba, maybe a couple of spots here and there where we see some isolated thunderstorms. We'll keep our eye on that. Don't mean to say that we'll see thunderstorms everywhere, but we could get some rumbles of thunder into the afternoon. Out of some of that pretty negligible rainfall, saying 5, maybe 10 millimeters on the top end for places like Lynn Lake. Into Flin Flon, though, scattered showers at best as we get into the next couple of days here. So we do need some moisture. I don't have a lot of that in the long-range forecast either. Looking at 23 degrees for the afternoon tomorrow in Winnipeg. There's that risk of an isolated thunderstorm. Winds do stay breezy for the next couple of days out of the northwest. That's going to allow temperatures to remain pretty close to seasonal for the next few days. 22 degrees into Wednesday, Thursday 24 degrees, and then we start to get some of that heat back as we get toward the weekend again, mainly sunny into Friday at 25 degrees. And then a slight chance of showers, maybe some thunderstorms into the weekend, and you'll notice that the heat cranks up again as we get into the weekend. I'll talk a little bit more about your 7-day forecast and when we get a little bit more in the way of rain when I come back later on.
All right, thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
You're looking at some of the sights from this weekend's Motorcycle Ride for Dad. The event raised $600,000 for prostate cancer research this year. We have more ahead right after the break. Stay with us. Thousands flooded downtown Winnipeg on Sunday in a display of love and unity for the annual Pride Parade. The parade kicks off Pride Month. The colorful event carried on amid Manitoba's ongoing state of emergency. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Thousands of Manitobans flooded downtown Sunday in a colorful display of love and unity. Some experiencing the festivities and an event like this for the first time ever.
In Ghana, our culture, most of the people and our culture frown on distance. And that is why we flew from our country, just to have our rights and then have our privacy. No discrimination here.
For the Morissette family, Pride was a chance to celebrate who they are.
It feels great because, like, in most areas of the world, you can't be yourself, and so, like, having this parade every year, it just means so much to me because I get to be myself to my full extent.
And to reaffirm their support for their children.
It's very important to me to show my kids that I don't care. I don't care who you are, what you do, who you do. I love you.
A message some hoped would spread to even the youngest of attendees.
Because we want him to know when he grows up that he can be whoever he wants and do whatever he wants, and being at an event like this is really important to see that.
The parade marched on during the province's state of emergency over the wildfire situation. Barry Karlenzig with Pride Winnipeg says the organization will donate half of the scholarship money raised to the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs to help wildfire evacuees.
It is a time to be loud and proud, but also acknowledge what is going on up north.
Karlenzig also says the day was a roaring success.
We're looking at the rough numbers. We know it's over 10,000 for sure, so it's one of our record numbers for both floats and participants and people watching the parade.
And he hopes it only grows. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
One person who did not attend Pride festivities was Manitoba's opposition leader. The Progressive Conservative Party opted not to attend Pride in a formal manner this year, and Pride Winnipeg says it's disappointed. CBC's Bartley Keevis joins us now live in studio. Bartley, why is this significant?
Historically, Manitoba political parties do walk in the Pride Parade, and the PCs are no different. As a party, they've marched in every parade since 2017, though there was one year when former Premier Heather Stephenson was asked not to speak at a separate Pride rally. The PCs have a new leader now. Abi Khan was selected by party members in late April, and he says he wasn't invited to walk in the parade this year.
MLAs are free to attend if they wanted to attend. I don't know what every MLA schedule was. I know my schedule was as it was. But again, also, I had Pride commitment. I wasn't invited. And I don't want the story to be about me attending Pride. This is about community. It's about a celebration. It's about a community. It's about the rights. And that's what we want to focus on.
Okay, so Bartley, do you need an invitation to walk in the parade?
No, you don't. The only formal invitations go to the Premier, the Mayor, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Barry Karlenzig of Pride Winnipeg says all political parties have to do in order to walk in the parade is to sign up, and he says he's not happy the PCs chose not to do that this year.
It's disappointing to me because when the PCs were in power, we did receive the provincial grant to start the Manitoba Pride Alliance, and we were told we support queer community, we support the community, and this shows wholeheartedly that was just speech. They don't support the community.
Okay, some more context here. During the 2023 provincial election campaign, Khan served as the face of his party's parental rights campaign. LGBTQ advocates pointed out they saw that term, parental rights, as a transphobic dog whistle. Now, in an interview this year, Khan told me he didn't know what that term meant in that context at that time.
I am aware after the campaign, actually, that some people would use that as a dog whistle. It was not my intent at all. I don't believe in that at all.
Khan said, as a visible minority, he has faced and continues to face discrimination, and he cares about the rights of all Manitobans. Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Bartley. CBC's Bartley Keevis reporting live tonight. Well, today is the last day the Manitoba legislature will sit before the summer, and more than 30 government bills are expected to become law. That includes one to remove interprovincial trade barriers and a bill requiring landlords to cover costs if tenants have to evacuate their units. That's in response to what happened at Birchwood Terrace last year. Nahani Fontaine is the government House leader.
We know that our team, our government, has been working incredibly hard to make life more affordable, to fix health care, and that's what Manitobans sent us here to do. I'm really proud of the legislative agenda that we brought forward.
Another bill that's expected to become law will stop grocery stores from preventing competitors to open nearby. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Saskatoon for his first in-person meeting with the provincial premiers since the federal election, and it couldn't be more important. The nation's top political leaders are discussing ways to strengthen the Canadian economy in the face of U.S. tariffs and the talk of making this country the 51st state. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg has details on the proposals and the positive vibes so far.
Everyone, love is in the air.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford crooning alongside Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. The relationship between the provinces and the federal government hasn't always been loving, but they're trying to make it work, especially as Canada aims to build a stronger and more independent economy as it faces down U.S. threats.
The leadership around this table of developing truly nation-building projects. And this is just the start. This is just the start.
Prime Minister Mark Carney asked each premier to come with their pitches to fast-track infrastructure and energy projects. Smith wants pipelines to move Alberta's oil to the coast and to new markets.
This is not just an ideological argument. It's not just a minor disagreement. Oil is by far the most valuable export for Canada.
But a pipeline would likely need buy-in from provinces along the route, like BC and Quebec.
First, I've been invited here by Mr. Carney, not by Danielle or whoever.
Quebec has historically opposed those projects, but Premier François Legault says they'd look at the proposals.
We need to see what's the economic impact for Quebec, what is the impact on the environment.
The premiers have other projects they want Ottawa to approve or fund. Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador have plans to transport their hydroelectricity to markets in Atlantic Canada and beyond. And Premier Doug Ford wants money for nuclear reactors and to mine critical minerals in Northern Ontario.
We're going to be an energy superpower around the world. Those are our strengths, and we're going to make sure that we deliver that message, and I know the Prime Minister feels the same way.
Carney has already promised to remove any federal barriers to internal trade by Canada Day. Those restrictions have often made it easier to trade with the U.S. than between provinces, costing the Canadian economy as much as $200 billion a year. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's been a decade since Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission issued its calls to action for this country. They were recommendations meant to improve the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people and to address the legacy of residential schools. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson shows us what's changed for kids learning in school.
From attending a powwow to daily lessons about the land, this Ontario teacher, though not Indigenous, incorporates Indigenous knowledge in her lessons.
It's absolutely my responsibility to go and make sure I am learning about resources and context that we can bring into the classroom.
It's now been 10 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. Of the 94 recommendations, 12 include references to education, including make age-appropriate curriculum on residential schools, treaties, and Aboriginal peoples' historical and contemporary contributions to Canada a mandatory education requirement. Something that now does exist in every province and territory, but isn't always compulsory. The popularity of the Orange Shirt Day also indicates where we're at, says this author and professor, who is also the son of the late TRC author Murray Sinclair.
How many of you have an orange shirt in your closet that you pull out at least once a year? And nearly every hand in communities across this country go up. That tells you that there is progress being made. not enough progress because it is just simply one day where we commit to talking about the impact of residential schools. Can we do it for the other 364 days in a year?
Another call to action refers to financial support and self-governance of schools that cater to primarily Indigenous students. The First Nation School Board in the Yukon is one of a handful in the country that do that.
And so it was about changing how we're teaching in the schools from the structured literacy support to taking kids on the land.
Elsewhere, student enthusiasm for learning from and about Indigenous people is there.
One thing we do is we do sit spots where we go outside in nature and we say thank you to what nature has given us.
They shake from the land and they give back to the land.
A living testament to the power of Marie Sinclair's words. Education got us into this mess. Education can get us out of it. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
The suspect in a violent attack at a Jewish event in Boulder, Colorado on Sunday has been charged with a federal hate crime and attempted murder.
Mr. Solomon stated that he had been planning this attack for a year. And he acted because he hated what he called the Zionist group.
45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Solomon is accused of using a flamethrower and Molotov cocktails on a group gathered in support of Israeli hostages in Gaza. 12 people were injured, some suffering serious burns. Witnesses report the man yelled "Free Palestine" during the assault. Federal and state prosecutors filed separate criminal cases against Solomon, charging him with a hate crime and attempted murder. This violent act unfolded less than 2 weeks after 2 Israeli embassy staff were fatally shot in Washington. Still ahead, how a community is using its disaster expertise to help wildfire evacuees from northern Manitoba. More on that after the break. Stay with us. Members of Peguis First Nation have been forced from their homes repeatedly due to frequent flooding and even wildfires. The First Nation is now turning the tables and giving back to others in their time of need. CBC's Joanne Levisser has that story.
This is the home Lori Osborne made for her family inside the Peguis multiplex after fleeing Pimachikamak Cree Nation. She, her partner, and 4 children are safe now.
100% First Nation people are here, and it's comfortable. I like it.
Osborne documented her family's flight from the flames, including a 7-hour wait for the ferry, followed by hours in the heat and smoke at the Norway House airport.
My baby, we sat outside the airport for 7 hours, and she was just sleeping on the ground.
But it's when they boarded the Hercules that rescued them,
It's okay,
that the severity of the situation sunk in.
This whole thing was just, I don't know, I just saw my kids. My kids, that's all. I felt sorry for them.
Peguis members are far too familiar with dealing with disasters. Chief Stan Bird says it was a simple decision to help out and provide shelter for 300 evacuees, which, as of Saturday, was about half full.
People from other communities stepped up. They helped us. We appreciated that. We couldn't have done it without them, so we're just trying to reciprocate.
Peguis Chief and Council decided to take in evacuees without knowing if any financial or other support would be available.
Never given or allowed the opportunity to do things the way we think they should be done. There's always criteria, guidelines, rules. And I think it hampers us in a lot of it, just so to see what's happening here. I mean, that shows that we are quite capable.
Educational assistant Beverly Scatch is here taking care of her 4-month-old grandson, Carlito. Carlito's mom, Caitlin, is a firefighter who's battling the blaze back in Pimachikamak.
Can I talk to Caitlin?
She's trying to reach her daughter to let her know they're safe. Caitlin never got a chance to say goodbye to her mom and infant son before they fled.
She's out in the bush right now. She was looking for you, and just wondering where you are and how you are. I don't know when she'll be back.
Now, what do you do? Wait?
Yeah, while waiting. I have to be strong though for my grandson.
The members of Pimachikamak Cree Nation have found safety and shelter here in Peguis, but no amount of kindness or hospitality will make up for the fact that they're so far from home. Joanne Levisser, CBC News, Peguis First Nation.
Now, coming up tonight on The National, Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault and her team get a first-hand look at the evacuation efforts in an exclusive ride-along with the Canadian Armed Forces. Dramatic moments and the rush to get out, coming up tonight on The National. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us once again. And Riley, some just incredible pictures coming out of there. You're closely, of course, watching what's happening with the forecast here in Manitoba.
Yeah, exactly. The need for precipitation. We did get about 10 millimeters of rain in Winnipeg this morning, but it's the shift in winds and the unpredictability of the winds that have been really hindering firefighting efforts in parts of northern Manitoba without a good steady rain that I don't have in the forecast either for the immediate future. I'll start with a look at the watches and warnings again, because these have been changing throughout the day as we've seen that shift in winds throughout the day. So the air quality warning in place for a good chunk of northern Manitoba because of that shift to a more westerly flow. The smoke from some of those fires, particularly around Flin Flon, Puckawaga, and Lynn Lake, that is all pushing eastward toward Thompson into the Island Lake region. So that means poor air quality throughout the day on Tuesday into Wednesday before we start to see more of a northwesterly flow. And once we start to see that shift northwesterly, that's when I think we'll see those alerts and some of that haze and smoke returning for the Parkland, Dauphin, Swan River, and even into the southern Interlake. So just keep that in mind if you have any outdoor activities, maybe you work outdoors and you're particularly susceptible to smoke, that we could see some of that as we get into the next couple of days as those winds shift around again in parts of the province. Temperatures right now, 18 degrees. We've been climbing through the late afternoon as the sun has popped out in southern Manitoba. So as forecasted, 18 this afternoon in Winnipeg, 19s for Brandon and Melita, 20 in Dauphin at the moment. Thompson looking at 17 degrees. Overnight tonight, we'll see some clearing happening west to east as we get through the evening. So still a little bit of cloud cover hanging around into the west. 8s and 9s through Dauphin, Swan River, Verdun, but where we still have a little bit of cloud cover hanging around, some of that heat will stay with us, so down to 11 degrees for Winnipeg, 12 into Gimli, single digits into northwestern Ontario as well. And as that low spreads some cooler air across northern Manitoba, the possibility even for some wet flurries in places like Taduli Lake, 10 degrees in the Pas and OCN, 10 degrees as well in Grand Rapids. As we get into the day on Tuesday, that area of low pressure still spinning some snow. Yes, with temperatures cool and some rain, not in the amounts that we really need through northern Manitoba, but getting a few rounds of some rain for places like Lynn Lake in particular as we get through the day on Tuesday into Flin Flon. This is, like I said earlier, scattered showers at best. Temperatures, though, a lot cooler than they have been, which will help firefighters start to get a handle on things. Into southern Manitoba, looking at highs in the 20s through the afternoon. As we clear out, mostly sunny skies for the afternoon tomorrow. 23 degrees in Winnipeg. And as we get into the day, into the afternoon hours on Tuesday, March, we are looking at the potential for some scattered thunderstorms. Your 7-day is on the way.
Thank you very much, Riley. With wildfires burning across Canada and thousands of people forced from their homes, there's renewed attention on the amount of national resources available to fight fires and assist Canadians in the aftermath. For years, the Canadian Association of Canadian Fire Chiefs has been calling for a national fire administration. This morning, Information Radio's Marcy Marcusa spoke with an Ontario fire chief who sits on the association's board.
We have had BC firefighters, Alberta firefighters. We've had personnel coming to help us coordinate it, and firefighters coming from the States to Manitoba to help us in this emergent moment. How would a nationally coordinated system that you've been pressing for change the responses that we're seeing? Like, if we had that in place, how do you think that would maybe have helped us in this moment, or in the future could help us in moments like these?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think on the preparatory phase side of things, it would have been started long before the actual response, because once the response is required, you're essentially chasing your tail after, something is well established. So ensuring that we have the right resources at the right place at the right time, and those decisions are made from a policy level, is so vitally important. We have the ability to certainly help our neighbors. But what we're seeing is there's only 2 provinces across this country right now on the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center's interactive map that aren't dealing with wildfires in their own provinces. So the ability to help our neighbors is getting more and more challenged. You talked about firefighters coming from other locations. We've got firefighters coming from Australia and Mexico. Currently there is not a great process in place to provide the federal policymakers the right information about what resources are necessary. In some cases, it's not just about getting more people to the front lines, it's about ensuring that the coordination of those people are properly represented so that they're not just coming in without a specific task and or expectation of what to do. In the absence of the National Fire Administration, our group, the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, has been dealing with humane societies, has been dealing with food banks, has been dealing with industry as an example, and all of these things should be facilitated through a National Fire Administration. We are the only country as part of the G7 that does not have a National Fire Administration. We've been advocating for years. We have a turnkey solution ready. We can put it in place before the G7 meetings, and it's almost ironic that the G7 meetings are coming here and our country is literally burning.
Can I ask you in our last minute here about jurisdiction? Because in Manitoba, of course, we watched provincial responses to some of the evacuation efforts, and then there were First Nations in this province that were waiting for the federal reaction because jurisdictionally they're under the federal government, their own governments, and then the federal government by extension for emergency response. If we had a National Fire Service response coordination, that office you're talking about in terms of prep, would you need to break down all of those barriers as well? So we're just looking at helping Canadians, period.
So it would be about helping Canadians, period, but there isn't the jurisdictional challenges that are kind of foreseen from the federal level. There's actually, it's quite an easy system that's set up, no different than in Japan or Australia or many of the other countries. This isn't about jurisdictional control. It's about that intersection of provincial wildfire does not have the same abilities on structural firefighting as the local authorities having jurisdiction, meaning the fire chiefs. So it's about when things are happening in wildfires outside city limits, and then all of a sudden it meets city limits, that's where that coordination of resources is really, really critical. And right now, in the absence thereof, our colleagues are calling upon their mutual aid partners or friends within communities close and trying to establish incident command posts and work together. It's not the boots on the ground issues that are creating the challenges. It's the oversight from the federal and provincial levels that are creating the challenges. And we have a solution to make that better.
Thanks for being with us, Paul, in this moment. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, thoughts to everyone that are involved. Safety for everybody.
Still ahead, Riley Lachuk is back with our last check on the forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Let's get you the latest information now on our top story. That's the wildfires burning across the province. As of today, there are 25 fires burning in the province, 10 are out of control. In Flin Flon, Mayor George Fontaine says so far no structures within the city have burned. That fire was last estimated at around 40,000 hectares, slightly smaller than the city of Winnipeg. In Lynn Lake, the province says some abandoned derelict structures were lost over the weekend, but all major infrastructure is safe. In Pocketuagan, the fire there is being held east of the community. All members are now out, but a crew of around 30 remains to aid firefighting efforts. A tent has been set up outside the Winnipeg Soccer Federation North Complex on Leela Avenue. That is where hundreds of evacuees are staying. There has been a call out for donations of socks, diapers, and milk that can be dropped off there. And the province has set up a hotline for people to get updates on family members who were moved from hospital beds or personal care homes because of wildfires. That can be reached at 204-788-8200 locally or 1-888-315-9257 toll free. Anyone who needs wildfire information is asked to contact 211. That includes information on evacuation orders and where you can turn for help if you need it.
All right, Tuesday looking very seasonal for much of the province. Once again, looking at 23 degrees, mostly sunny skies by the time we get to the afternoon. A little bit of cloud hanging around with the risk of an isolated thunderstorm, but you will notice a northwesterly wind gusting up to 40 as we get into the evening. 22 degrees on the way for Wednesday, 24s and 25s, a mix of sun and clouds into the rest of the week. And then we're looking at temperatures climbing with the risk of thunderstorms as we get into Saturday, a chance of showers on both Sunday and Monday. Well, with all of the worry about wildfires and the hardships many of our province are facing, we wanted to leave you with a little bit of levity tonight.
A group of Flin Flon evacuees gathered Sunday at Kildonan Park. Dozens joined in song, trying to stay positive. We thought we'd leave you with some of that tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening.